Hello there, my little yarn goblins and fiber trolls, and welcome back to another episode of Flannel Pod. My name is Christopher. I am Flannel and Pearls, and I want to welcome you in. Come on in and take a seat. Take a seat right there, or over there, or over there. You can even sit behind me if you need to. The table is round, so there are many places to sit. Feel free to pull up a chair wherever you feel most comfortable. If you're new here, I want to welcome you to the wild and woolly world of Flannel and Pearls. This is a place for crafters. I am a fiber artist. I knit. I sometimes get out my drop spindles and I do a bit of spinning. I have been known to crochet. I would love to learn how to cross stitch. But no matter what you do, whether you're a knitter or you cross stitch or you crochet or you embroider or you weave or you spin, it doesn't matter if you don't even do stuff with fiber craft. Maybe you do watercolors or you sketch. Perhaps you take pictures. Maybe you throw pottery. That would be cool. Whittle things out of wood. What matters is that if you make beautiful things with your hands, this is a place that you belong. And I want to welcome you in and say, Happy February. My goodness, by the time this goes up, February will be all but gone. I've not put anything up. We've not even been at the podcast here since December, back when I was talking about Christmas movies for just what felt like a year on end. And I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody for indulging me in my nerdiness and allowing me to talk about one of my favorite things and talk about Christmas movies for that entire episode. But, let's have a breath for February. It has come, it has gone, and I hope that it was incredibly kind to you. You know, usually it feels like when I'm in my podcast mode, I'm a little bit peppier. I've got a little bit more pep in my step, and I'm feeling very not low energy today. That's not really what I'm feeling. I think that I'm just feeling very relaxed. And I have to be perfectly honest with you. I actually had an entire episode filmed. I recorded my office. For those of you who subscribe on my Patreon, in the Fiber Troll tier, you know that right over there is my desk, and I film my Fiber Troll Friday from the desk right over there every Friday. And over here, this is where I do the podcast, and I sat here in my office and I monologued at my camera for like 2 hours, just sharing all the stuff that I had to share. And then I loaded all of the footage up into my computer yesterday. I sat down, I said, I'm going to knock this out. I'm going to get it all edited. I'm going to get it uploaded into YouTube. It's going to be up. And I immediately realized that every single frame was out of focus. Every single one. I don't know what happened. I've done this so many times. I still can't figure out what I did. I had to have knocked the autofocus feature, like the button, on accident while I was getting things set up. And there is a tiny little screen that sits right over here on the off side of the camera. And it's not large enough at this distance for me to be able to tell that it was out of focus. And I was just so gutted. And I was like, what am I going to do? I didn't want to leave everybody hanging for the month of February. And at the same time, I was like, I can't remember all of the jokes that I made, and I can't remember all of the things that I said. And at the same time, I didn't want to do some sort of like facsimile of that. And so I thought about it all day while I was working, while I was sending out my emails, while I was answering my little phone calls and doing my little tasks. And instead of sitting down and re-recording the episode yesterday, I decided to go on a walk. I don't know if you're a big fan of hikes or if you like going on long walks, but if you're not familiar, I recently was introduced to an app called AllTrails, which all you have to do is just type in your zip code or a city. You hit a radial distance around that zip code that you'd like to see what walking trails exist. You hit search and it gives you all of the options. And maybe I didn't know about this because I've lived in cities for the last 15 years of my life, and let's take Chicago as one of the examples. Within sight of Chicago, there are very few walking trails, and I knew all of them. I didn't need an app to tell me where the walking trails were. But now that I don't live there anymore, I have no idea where these things are. And so I downloaded the app, put in my zip code, hit search, threw a dart at the map, picked one, hopped in the car, and I drove. And when I got there, I was the only car in the parking lot. Which, to be fair, it was almost sunset. The park itself closed at sunset. I maybe had 45 to an hour left before the park was going to close. But I decided, you know what? No, I'm going to do this anyway. And so I parked, got out of the car, and I thought maybe there will be other people on the trail. Perhaps people live nearby. Maybe they biked here. Perhaps I'll see people biking. Surely someone's out walking their dog. It's a beautiful day. It was 56 degrees, clear skies. And I was the only person there the whole time. And maybe where you live, that is nothing extraordinary. But having lived in cities for the past 15 years of my life, where constant companionship, particularly by strangers, is just a daily experience. But this was one of the first experiences that I had had of being truly and completely alone in so many years. Because there was not a soul on that trail the entire time. It was just me and some rabbits, a couple squirrels hunting for some nuts, one fox, which I wished I had gotten on camera. It was adorable. It was just this beautiful bright red fox just bouncing and leaping across the grasses. And it was so fragrant because they had been doing controlled burns. And so a good amount of the land on either side of the trail was either charred or still smoking. And so the air was cold, crisp, and filled with wood smoke. And it was just me. The sun very slowly setting down over the horizon, way off in the distance. And it was that type of sun that gets pumpkin orange before it disappears. So dark and so saturated, it feels like a tangerine that you could just reach out and pluck right out of the skyline. And about a third of the way into the trail, there was this raised platform that has been just propped up there for people to stand and watch this lazy river as it washes beneath them. And I just stood, cattails swaying in the breeze under my feet, very tall prairie grasses rustling, still very crisp and dry because it's the winter. And this little river reflecting the most vibrant magenta sky. And it was just me. And I have not had very many opportunities to experience that lately. And it really felt like I had come home. It's like I stepped back in time, and not even that. It was as if a hand reached out from the past and took mine and brought me back to a place that was simultaneously brand new to my eyes, but terribly familiar. I'm going to be honest with you, it was kind of hard to sit down and record this episode because all I wanted to do was go back to the park, and that's probably what I'm going to do tomorrow. As soon as I get this done, as soon as I get this edited and up on YouTube, I'm probably just going to pack up. Doesn't matter what time of day it is. I'm going to call off work and I'm just going to head over, and I'm just going to spend as much time as I possibly can. Because February is such a weird time, isn't it? It's such an interesting period. It's this strange interzone of midwinter blahs. It feels like everything is happening and simultaneously nothing is happening, right? Like, it feels like time is very slow, but at the same time, the month is very short, and there's not enough going on. Because those holidays at the end of the year, they are crammed together. We have Halloween that is almost nearly immediately followed by Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is almost immediately followed by Christmas. Christmas is literally followed immediately by New Year's. And then from that point, unless you celebrate Valentine's Day in some big way, you really got nothing. You got nothing but strange, oscillating weather, temperatures going up and down, wreaking havoc with your sinuses. If you live north where I do, especially on the lake, I live on Lake Michigan, it is just a constant overcast of gray skies. You're very lucky if you have a day like I had yesterday where there was actually sun. There's a sunset. There was a sun to set. I got to see that. And so I'm feeling. This is when I experience cabin fever. I don't know about you, but this is when that happens. For some people, I feel like it happens earlier in the winter. They start feeling it somewhere in January. For me, it is February. And it's February because you're getting these little teases, these little tastes of the spring that is to come. But it's not here yet. You can't have it quite yet. I'm going to put it on the table, but you're not allowed to take it. You can smell the food. I'm going to put a beautiful plate of boeuf bourguignon down on top of the table here for you. I'm going to put it in front of you. You could smell it. You're not allowed to eat it yet. And that's what February feels like. And so what are you doing? What are you doing to break up your midwinter blahs? If you live in the Northern Hemisphere, believe me, I have lots of friends in Australia and New Zealand, and all of them are absolutely living their best summer lives. Congratulations, I hope it's going well. Very envious. I know that our tables will turn very quickly, and you're all of a sudden going to feel the same way that I do, right around the same time that I am living my summertime best. But what are you doing? How are you splitting it up? How are you splitting up your time and making this winter a little bit easier? I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. I have been diversifying my crafting experience. And I really want to, I do want to share this with you because I am actually very excited. I'm one of those people. I don't know if you're like me, but I need lots of different things to do. I love to live life like a buffet. I don't want to order just one entree. I want to do this a la carte. I want to have all of these different options. And I want to visit the buffet several times just to make sure that they didn't bring any new dishes out. I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything. And that is what I have been doing because y'all know I love to knit. I love it so much. But the reality of the matter is that man cannot live on bread alone. And so I have been exploring what exists outside of that. Like, what is beyond knitting? What else is there? What fascinates me? What interests me? What has a little spark in the back of my head? But what I told myself is, before I dive in, I do have to finish the project on my needles. And for those of you who watched last month's At the Table, which if you haven't, here it is. It's right here. Feel free to give it a little watch. You know that I've been working on my MARVEJ sweater. I actually knit on the last month's At the Table, and no, it was just last month's. I thought it was 2, but that was the Awin sweater. But last month's At the Table, you know that I was working on my MARVEJ sweater, which is a beautiful sweater by Andreas Ruthemann. And I said I have to finish this. That's what I have to do, and I have. And I'd love to show it to you right now. I want to show you. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? I'm so tickled. I got the waist figured out. Again, for those of you who subscribe to the Fiber Troll tier, you know that waist gave me a lot of trouble. I have very wide hips. For a dude, I've got pretty wide hips, and so a lot of designs that are made for men's bodies don't usually fit me down south. I usually have to give them a bit more space because they just end up stretching that waistband so intensely, and that's not fun. So I had to rip back a few times to modify it specifically to my body's shape. But isn't the yoke for that so elegant? It's such an elegant, beautiful design. I refer to it as little frost spikes, especially in the color contrast that I have decided to do, which the fiber that I chose is Lion brand Fisherman wool, which is one of my all-time favorite budget-friendly yarns. I think a lot of times when we're online, when we are shopping online, when we're seeing people doing their knitting, a lot of times the work that we see is being done with this breathtaking, beautiful, hand-dyed yarn, which, like, please do not get me wrong. Anyone who watched my 12 Yarns of Christmas, which, if you haven't, here's a link for it. Yes, it's February, but I think that you can still watch a Christmas-themed episode. I think you can do that, and if you'd like to, there it is right there. But anyone who watched that knows I love my indie dyers. I love them very much. I love my hand-dyed yarn. But at the same time, I think that we also, as a community, have a responsibility to acknowledge that hand-dyed yarn is cost prohibitive for a lot of people. And so I love to make projects out of budget-friendly yarns as well. And for me, Lion Brand Fisherman wool is hard to beat because you know that I love a non-superwash. You know that. And this one, what I chose to do this out of, the original design itself was made for a DK held double with a strand of mohair. And I'm trying really hard to knit from my stash this month, and so I didn't have any mohair that would really work for this project. I certainly didn't have enough. It's not something that I just keep on stock. So I figured, since this is a worsted weight, which DK plus lace equals worsted, I figured that this would work really well as a stand-in, and it did for the sake of gauge. And the added benefit is that specifically for the natural brown, which is the color that I used for the main color on this particular sweater, is that it has these beautiful flecks of white that just sort of like poke out here and there, adding a halo to the fabric itself. And the wonderful effect of that is that it ends up looking as though there is a strand of mohair in there. I loved making this pattern. I really did. And the wonderful thing about the yoke, and I'm going to show this off again. The wonderful thing about the yoke is that it is not very complicated. And so for someone who is maybe new to the world of color work, maybe you would like to make a color work yoke, but you feel nervous about maybe diving into those beautiful Icelandic style full color work yokes. I think that this is an extraordinary place to begin. It's super easy to follow, but there is one thing that I am going to say. There is something that I think matters more than anything else, which is you're going to have to be very careful about your color choices, and sticking to tonals is probably going to serve you in the long run. The reason is all of the color work takes place over single stitches. And so if you're not working with a super high contrast like I am here, those tiny little stripes, those single stitches, they're going to get lost. That's my fear. You could possibly do a very low contrast speckle as the main color. Perhaps it's something that's like a cream with a really soft tan speckle that just adds texture, and then use a very dark contrast. That would work. The one thing I can say is swatch your color work with this pattern. That way you can be sure. You can be sure that it turns out great. But for anyone who is looking for a really great sort of gender-in-specific sweater that fits all different types of bodies, if you're looking to make, and you are someone who is male presenting, if you are looking to build for or create for a male body, if you're looking to make for your boyfriend or your husband or your brother or your father, this would be a fantastic project. I really, really enjoyed this. I plan on making a separate one that's actually the reverse. What I want to do is I want to take this contrast color and I'm going to make it the main color. And that way I'll have both versions, because sometimes you want a dark sweater and sometimes you want a light sweater. So I got this done. This was my task. I said, okay, before I dive into anything else, before I dedicate my time and energy to discovering new things, I need to do right by this project and finish this off. So I couldn't be happier. I'm really tickled. So that is the MARVEJ sweater. The link to that pattern is below, so feel free to check that out. Also, feel free to check out Andreas's other designs, because they are all great. I know for an absolute fact I'll be making his glaze jumper, which looks like this. Yeah, I'm pointing over here today. Usually I point over there. Pointing over here. But it looks like this, and it is breathtaking. I think it's so interesting. You know what I would love to see? Every version of this sweater that I have seen so far has been made out of a lot of neutrals or a lot of natural tones. Blues, grays, browns and oatmeals, tans, things of that nature. If you make this sweater and you decide to do it in a super bright color, please let me know. Don't you think it would be super fun if the main color was maybe like a bubblegum pink, and then these beautiful little frosty spikes were like a dark magenta? Wouldn't that be fun? Or maybe like a robin's egg blue and teal. Ooh, or we could go autumnal, and this could be like a really beautiful, maybe canary yellow, or as dark as perhaps a goldenrod, and then the stripes could be pumpkin. Very autumnal. I just think that that would be really, I think that'd be really beautiful. And so if you decide to do it, and you decide to do bright colors, I hope you'll let me know. Let's dive into the new stuff that I've been working on. If you follow me on Instagram, do you remember months ago, back in the autumn, when I said that I wanted to learn how to do natural dyeing from walnuts? Do you remember that? You remember how I went walking around my neighborhood for like 3 days on end because I don't have a walnut tree, but I figured someone nearby had to, and so I spent every day after work just walking around looking for a walnut tree until finally I found one. And then I filled 2 shopping bags up with walnuts. I brought them home. I made that massive vat of dye bath, and then I did nothing with it. Because I do. I absolutely remember that happening. I didn't have the time. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have it in me to actually do something with it. And the reason is, it's actually very simple. Really all it boils down to is that I didn't want to just take the limited amount of undyed wool that I have and just throw it into the bath without really understanding what it was capable of. I've never dyed with walnuts before, and so I didn't want to just willy-nilly with a bunch of just walnuts and just throw them in. I didn't want to do that, so what I did, because I am very much a person dedicated to testing things out, what I ended up doing is I did a test. I took a whole bunch of the undyed Lion brand wool that I've got. I say a whole bunch. It was like one whole skein. But I took one of the skeins of undyed Lion brand's Fisherman wool that I've got, and I created these tiny little minis. Look at all those little labels. Look at that. I made all of these minis. I made a wedding bouquet, a wedding bouquet of minis, and I made 2 of them. And what I decided to do, after reading a whole bunch about how to dye with walnuts, which I wish I could remember the name of the blog off the top of my head. I should have written it down. I should have made a note of it so that I could remember. I don't. I will look it up. It is linked below. I will absolutely link that blog post below, because if you are interested in learning how to dye from walnuts, this is an exceptional resource. They go through the whole process. They explain a great deal about how exactly it works. And the neat part is at the very end, they explain that while walnuts don't need a mordant, they don't need something to help the color fast stay in the wool. It comes with its own. It has a name. I don't remember it. It's in the blog post. However, using different mordants can affect the ultimate color. And one of those mordants was soda ash. And I happened to have some soda ash because I love to do some tie-dye every now and then. And so I had a bottle of soda ash in my basement. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to do 2 tests. I'm going to have a control, and I'm going to have a variable. And what I ended up doing was I had, on one side, I've got these reversed. On one side, I had my unmordanted. This is the one that's untreated. This is just the walnut itself. And on the other side, I had treated with the soda ash. And I'll line these up. I'm going to do a nice little overhead so that you can see the difference between these. But ultimately, what I ended up doing was I said I'm going to do a time test, and it's going to be a time test from being dipped immediately into the bath and then pulled out, 1 minute and 30, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 30, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. I wanted to see what would happen across these time frames in comparison of completely untreated versus treated with the soda ash. And what I found out is that after 4 hours, at least for the bath that I had, after 4 hours, it sort of reached its maximum saturation. It wasn't getting any darker after 4 hours. You could look at the 3 of them. I mean, you can look at them right here. Between hours 4, 5, and 6 on both the treated and the untreated, there's virtually no difference between the 2. And so now that I had this information, not only was that a delightful experience, it was so much fun. And let me tell you, that bath sat there for so long. This is a gross story. It sat there for so long that by the time I opened the lid, there was a sheet of mold on it. Just a skin about 3 millimeters thick. Just a skin of disgusting, not disgusting, that's rude. Mold can be beautiful. It's just a mold that you are not intentionally growing and you don't expect to. Surprise mold is not fun. And I actually filmed some of the footage because I needed you to see this. I actually filmed some of it so that you could see, look at that. Ew. Oh, and it was like rubbery. What it reminded me of is it reminded me of a vinegar mother. That's what it reminded me of. It was a skin. I could lift the whole thing out and just hold it in my hand like a membrane. It was wild, but I do have to give it its credit. It was beautiful. Lots of little pinks, some reds, greens, whites. It was very pretty. I ended up just scooping the whole thing out, taking it outside and throwing it in our back garden, which, I mean, since then we have had a lot of frosts, a lot of freeze. I'm sure that all of that is just gone now. Maybe it was a terrible idea to take that out there. I have no idea. Should I not have done that? Now I'm worried. I have no idea. I did it. It was months ago. There's nothing we can do to undo it. But I did this test, had an amazing time with it, and it gave me sort of I think a foundation of understanding what I could accomplish reasonably with the bath itself. And so, if you remember again from my 12 yarns of Christmas, one of those yarns was from Coyote Run Mill, which is a new fiber mill based out of Michigan. And my friends, Nicole and Andy, hello, they sent me some of their undyed superwash merino to play around with my walnut bath. I got several skeins of their 3-ply sport, a few skeins of their 2-ply fingering, and 1 skein of their 3-ply fingering for socks, because you know I love to make socks. And what I decided to do first was my first test was going to be playing around with those, with the 3-ply sock, because I wanted to make something beautiful out of it. And this is what I ended up with. Look at how dark that is. It's so saturated. This stayed in the bath for, I believe, 4 hours. This was the 4 hour. And I am thrilled with this color. Absolutely delighted. I said, this is exactly the color that I'm looking for. And so I took all of my 6 skeins of sport and I said, I'm going to make a vest out of this. That is what I'm going to do. That is the perfect color for a vest. And I put all 6 of those skeins in there, got it going, simmering, let it sit, and 4 hours came. And it was not this color. And then 5 hours, and then 6 hours, and then 8. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to let it sit overnight. Maybe it just needs to sit a little bit longer because there's a lot more yarn. And then the next day, it didn't look that much better. And so I was like, ooh, maybe there's too much water in the bath. Maybe I need to let it concentrate and perhaps it will take some more of the dye. So I took the lid off and let the steam sort of take some of that away. And arguably, it did get a little bit darker. But then it just dawned on me, it's exhausted. There's just not enough walnut in the bath in order to get 600 grams of wool this color. And it was one of those things that because I've never done this before, it didn't dawn on me that, of course, a bath with 1 skein of yarn in it is inevitably going to be able to dye this much darker than a bath with 6 of them. You know, it's sort of like if you're using I believe that the brand is Jacquard, the acid dyes that a lot of indie dyers use. If you take a teaspoon of that and you put it in the dye bath and you use just 1 skein, that's going to come out a very different color if you use that same teaspoon with the same amount of water and you put 6 of them in. Because now that same amount of dye has 6 times the competition in terms of saturation. So what I got, I'm not delighted with, I'm not thrilled, but I'm not angry. I'm not miserable about it. I got this kind of latte color. And it's all right. Like, I mean, it's not the absolute best in the world. It's certainly not the dark that I was expecting. This dark cocoa color that is so rich, so saturated, so beautiful. Instead, I got this just sort of kind of like, sort of like caramely latte. Caramel isn't even fair because caramel has red in it. And I think that that's really what does not set me off about this color is I have a lot of yellow in my skin tone and I can't really do olive tones very well. And this is decidedly in the olive tone family. And so what my plan is, this is what I'm thinking, this is where I'm at right now, is that I think I'm going to hold on to this, and I might wait until next fall, gather more walnuts, and over dye it. Right? I mean, it doesn't need to go that much further. Like, it doesn't need to go much further in order to get to the color that I wanted. And so I think I'm just going to hold on to it, and I'm going to over dye it and see what I can do. That's sort of my plan, because I feel like I could knit something out of this, but I wouldn't be thrilled with it because it's not the color that would look best on me. But what I can say is that I had an absolute blast with dyeing from natural materials. It was so much fun. It was such a thrill to do the experiments. And what I really want to do now, I've already started my little sprouts. I've got my little, none of them have sprouted yet, but I've planted all of my marigolds for this year. If y'all, again, if you follow me on Instagram, you remember my tiny little marigold garden that did not do well last year. Did not do well. This year, instead of putting them in planters, we are actually going to put them in the ground so that they can grow nice and big. Very excited. So I think that I'm going to have a little bit of a dyer's garden next year. I think that's my plan. I have a decent sized backyard, so I can certainly create a little bit of a dyer's garden. That's my goal. And the tragedy of this is where things got crazy, is I said, okay, what's left of my walnut bath, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to boil it down, and I'm going to put it in just a little like deli pack, you know, those like quart-sized plastic deli. Well, actually, I drink water out of them. This. I just said, oh, I'll just boil it down until it reaches this, and then I'll put it away, and it'll be great. Well, here's the problem with that, is that I put it on to boil, and then I walked away until every fire alarm in my house went off simultaneously, and I panicked. What had happened is that it boiled down much faster than I thought it was going to, because the pan is so wide, there's so much surface area, and there were so many walnut solids still in the bath. I strained them out. I ran it through a muslin bag. I thought they were done. I thought they were all gone. No. There were several. There was lots. There was a thick coat of very fine sediment at the bottom of that walnut bath, and it all caught on fire because I just let it boil. The whole house was filled with, it still smells like smoke right now, actually. The shirt smells like smoke. So that was the end of my walnut experience. Very dramatic, very exciting. I will be doing it again. But again, thank you so much, Nicole and Andy, for sending over that beautiful wool. If you're a dyer and you are looking for a new base, or if you're looking for a new American mill to work with, please reach out to them. They'll be linked below. Wonderful people, independent run in Michigan. It's just, we need more American mills. That's really what it boils down to. Oh my God, I'm like triggered right now. We need more American mills. And so I'm absolutely delighted that Andy and Nicole are out there and they're doing beautiful work. So thank you again so much. Without you, I would not have been able to make that. Even if it's not the ideal color, it is the ideal fiber. Okay, come here. Come a little bit closer. Come a little closer. How would you feel if we left the world of fiber art for just a moment? I know it's crazy, but just for a second. Although now that I think about it, I guess it's really not leaving the world of fiber art, it's just not yarn. It's still fiber. Okay, here's what it comes down to is I have always wanted to learn how to sew. That's really what it is. I have always wanted to learn how to sew ever since I was a teenager. I had this dream of making my own clothes. I blame the fact that Project Runway premiered when I was 14 years old, and I think that that lit the fuse, and I don't think that fuse has ever stopped burning. It's just been a very, very, very long wick, and it just keeps going, waiting to hit the powder keg. But I have taken this strange midwinter interzone of ennui, and I have decided that this is the time to brush off my sewing machine, because I'm not a great sewer. It's not a thing for me, really, yet. But what I decided is, just because I'm not good at it doesn't mean that I can't become good at it. And you know how we get better at things? We get better at them by doing them. And so I had it in my mind. I had this idea in my head that what would work better. There's just stuff all over my table. It's walnut. I washed that wool so many times. If you know of a better way of draining out. I used muslin. I used muslin, like a pretty like strong woven muslin bag. It's a spice bag. It's made for that. I thought I got everything, but I washed that wool so many times and I'm still just getting little flaky pieces out. This is the ghost of that fire haunting me. That's what this is. Anyway, what was I even saying? Oh, I got it in my head. Yes. Oh, February. Okay, I got it in my head. If I want to learn how to make garments, a great place to start because they're small projects and they teach what I felt instinctively. It was just kind of like, there was nothing that told me this is what I should do, but I just had this idea that what would be great as a small project would be quilting. I mean, right? Like, well, although I would like to say for the record, I have now since learned that quilting is actually like the layering of pieces where you put like top layer, like a quilt top and the bottom and the batting, and then you sew over the top. That is quilting. And that what I thought was quilting is actually called piecework or patchwork. Piecework and patchwork, are they the same thing? I'm not sure. Anyway, they're certainly not quilting. And I thought that they were, so that was my mistake. But I had it in my head that one of the best things that I could do would be piecework because it teaches accurate cutting and accurate pressing and getting really precise 1/4 inch seams and making sure that you are following those seams exactly. It felt as though it was a great way to have a small project that I could do multiple times in a row, measure the progress of each of them to see, I would be able to very clearly see the improvement from square to square to square, right? Maybe that's true, maybe it's false. If you're a garment sewer, weigh in and tell me whether or not I was absolutely way off base in thinking that it was a good idea. It's just for someone like myself who's not a big sewer, it felt like a really good place to start. And so I hopped in the car, I head over to Joann Fabric, and you know that I hit those sale racks because I love a deal. And luckily, you know those packs of like 5 fabrics that are corresponding, they come together, 30% off. And I said, you got yourself a sale. That's what you've got. You've got yourself a customer. I grabbed a couple of them. I hit the quilting cotton wall, and you know how they've got the little pre-cuts as well? I was like, I'm going to get a few extra ones, a little corresponding, a little supplemental fabric to go with these little packs that I got. Great deal. Took it home, went online, looked up some free quilting squares, which if you are looking for some free quilting patterns, bingo, down in the caption, because I found a list of over 30 of them. And I just picked one. And just said, this is the one I'm going to do. I've got the fabric for it. Let's lay it out and let's see what happens. It was a journey. I ripped out the seams many times. I learned valuable lessons about directional fabric, but I'm very proud of it. And if you wouldn't mind, I know that this has absolutely nothing to do with yarn, but can I share this with you? I hope I can. I hope this is a good space for that. Look at my little square. Look at that. Isn't it cute? Like, I'm so proud of it. Don't you think that I even put a little bias tape around the edges? I think it would be nice just hanging on a wall, don't you? Just hang it back there? Oh, I'm so delighted. And I made this pattern is called the Continental square. If you're interested in making it, again, it'll be linked below. It's free. And I'm not in the business of gatekeeping, so if you want to make this, I would love for you to make one with me. You can show me up if you are an actual like skilled quilter like I am not. But if you're interested in making one, so what I did is I made this. I had such a good time. And because I have a chronic problem with not being able to leave well enough alone, I decided to make a second one. And this time I was going to make one that was my own design. I was going to take this pattern and I was going to modify it and make my own version of the Continental. And this is what I came up with. Oh, I got strings hanging off of it. Look at that. And it's the same fabrics. See? It's the same fabrics, just reimagined in a different way. I love that. That is what I love about crafting. That is what I find so exciting and thrilling, is that you can take the same 4 fabrics and the same basic idea, and you can make 2 completely different things. That is some true magic to me. It really is. Like that it's sort of like giving the same materials to 2 different knitters and saying, make a pair of socks. And they're going to turn out two completely different pairs of socks. And I just think that that's extraordinary. I had such a good time with this. I cannot wait to make more. I went back to Joann, shamelessly. I went back to Joann and I bought more fabric, and I am going to make more quilt squares. I am actually working on a shirt right now. It is going okay. I am to the sleeves. That is the part that is giving me troubles. It's not easy. Sleeves. I have watched so many YouTube tutorials on how to make sleeves, how to sew them together, and I have still not figured it out. I'm going to. Because I refuse to be defeated by this pattern. I'm gonna make my own shirt, and it's not gonna be great, and it's not gonna be perfect, and it'll probably fit weird, but you know what? I made it. And I made it from nothing. You know? So that is what I'm working on, and I am, if you are a sewer, I hope that you'll let me know. I wanna find my sewing buddies now, because I'm like living a teenage fantasy here. I'm like living my little teenage dream. What's up, Katy Perry? I'm like, it's so exciting to just, it's just thrilling to be able to do that. And so that is another thing that I have been up to. I feel so scattered. I'm just kind of like all over the place, but I have one more, all right? I got one more new crafting thing to share with you, because apparently January and February was all about the new. That's what it was all. It was new year, new crafts. That was apparently it. And this one, I have a feeling that those of you who have been watching since the podcast started back in August, I have a feeling you saw this one coming. So give me just 1 second. I'm gonna get this. I want to introduce you to somebody. Oh boy. Okay. Let's see if we can get this out of the way. There we go. Here we are. This is my starling. And before I even talk about it, the first thing that I want to do is I just want to extend an absolutely massive thank you to the DAEDALUS team. DAEDALUS makes a line of absolutely exceptional e-spinners, which for those of you who are familiar with DAEDALUS, you know what I'm saying. For those of you who are unfamiliar, there is a link below for you to check out their line. This is the STARLING. This is their sort of like mid-range, I think is probably a good way of putting it. They have smaller machines and they have larger machines. The larger ones are really quite large. They're clearly made for professionals, individuals who know what they're doing, people who are producing at large quantities. That was absolutely not for me, but the DAEDALUS team spent so much time talking to me about what my spinning goals were, what types of projects I was interested in spinning for, what fiber I wanted to spin, the weight I wanted to spin. And it was through those conversations that we figured out that the STARLING made the most sense for where I'm at. And I want to send a huge thank you to them, because without that, I would not have known that this was the right machine for me. And I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to have this as a part of my crafting arsenal. Like, it just, to have this as I think that this is inevitably going to be a regular guest here at the table. I feel it already. I feel such a kinship to my little starling here. And you know, you remember back in August when I posted my very first episode and I said that I was going to my very first fiber festival. I was going to the Allegan, Michigan Fiber Festival, and a bunch of you said that what was going to happen, the result of me going to that fiber festival, is that I was going to catch the spinning bug. And y'all were right. You absolutely were, because I've got spindles coming out of my ears now. I've got supported, I've got drop, I have Turkish, and now I've got an e-spinner. And there is something so thrilling about making something from nothing. Like, I find that so exciting and just so captivating. It feels magical. And I want so badly to be able to spin technically beautiful yarn, to understand all of the information, the twist angle, the bumps per inch, the grist, like all of it. I want to understand what it means when you're talking about the micron of the fiber and how that impacts the spin, the staple length, all of that stuff. And I feel like this is the beginning of that. And I'm really pumped. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about the machine today, because I will be doing a full video breakdown of the STARLING so that you can understand its specific, like its specs, what it is capable of, what makes it special. I'll be doing a full video just about that. And if you're interested, what I am going to be doing over on my Patreon for free. You're welcome to subscribe for free. You do not have to pay to subscribe. I'm going to be doing a vlog series walking through my experience of learning how to spin. Because I know how to use my drop spindle to a degree. I know how to do that. But that is very different. That is a very different experience from spinning on a wheel or an e-spinner. And what I want to do is I want to take you with me on that journey. I want you to be a part of that. I want to demystify the experience of spinning because I think a lot of crafters who work with yarn are interested in spinning. It just feels very daunting. But if I can do it, you can do it. Because there is absolutely nothing special about my ability to do crafting. There just isn't. I'm just dedicated to it, and I will stick around and work my way through ugly stuff until it's pretty. And so if I can do it, I know that you can do it. And so as I learn new things, as I discover stuff, I want you to be able to discover that with me. So please feel free to pop over. There's a link down there in the caption for my Patreon. There'll also be one here. There'll be a reminder at the end of the video. I'd love to take you on that journey with me. I've chosen to do it over my Patreon instead of here so that I can just kind of like moderate that experience a little bit easier and answer any questions that might come through because sometimes it gets a little hectic over here on YouTube. So please feel free to come over. I'd love for you to join me. But that is the Starling. I will be doing a full video breakdown of this machine to give you more information, and that'll be up soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that. You remember how I was saying that I was feeling very low key? Very sort of relaxed. Obviously, I start talking about crafting and all of that goes out the window because I am feeling very jazzed now. I'm feeling very pumped. I feel like I ended up talking really quick there at the end. I can't help it. I just get really excited about this stuff. I feel so passionately about crafting, and I absolutely love being able to talk to you about it and share what is happening in my life as I become a better crafter, as I challenge myself to grow and try new things. It's really exciting, and it means a lot to me that you are willing to come along with me on that and to watch me learn new stuff and to give me wonderful advice, because you do. I absolutely appreciate more than I can say the resources that you provide me. Thank you so much for that. And this video is already very long, and I know that that makes 2 in a row. We didn't have our little quiet time at the end of the December video, and we're not going to have it this time either, but I don't want to eat up more time than I am allowed in your day. That's really what it is. And I want to release you back to your day. And if you need that quiet crafting time, not a problem. Please feel free to pop on over to my favorite episode of At the Table, which is the one where I read one of my favorite stories, The Goose That Tried to Keep Summer. I love this episode. It means a lot to me. And if you'd like to have that little quiet time together, please feel free to pop on over and watch that. I want to release you back to your day. And I want to do that having given you everything that you need to be the best version of you. That's what I would like. And I want to thank you for the time that you've spent with me today. Thanks for letting me pop in and check in on you and see how you're doing. And thanks for popping in on me and seeing how I'm doing. That always means the world to me. I don't take this lightly. I really appreciate it. And I want you to remember that this is a space for friends. And any time you need somewhere where the noise of the world shuts off for just a little while, there is a place here at this table for you. All you need to do is pull up a chair. My name is Christopher. I am Flannel and Pearls, your local neighborhood knitting friend. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for spending time at the table with me today. If you would, please give this video a little like and hit the subscribe button on my channel. I know it seems silly, but those 2 little actions go a long way to help new creators like myself find and grow their audience. If you'd like to share your viewing experience on your own social media platforms, please tag me. I absolutely love seeing the stories of y'all watching and crafting along. It really makes my day. So you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Substack, and Patreon at Flannel and Pearls. And an absolutely massive thank you to my Patreon subscribers this month. Your support means the world to me, and I don't take that for granted. To watch ad-free versions of my videos, access behind-the-scenes footage, exclusive vlogs, playlists, and more, check out the link for my Patreon in the caption below. As always, take care of yourself, my friends. I'll see you next time.